Hello, welcome once again to Global Power Platform Bootcamp 2025 Baku, Azerbaijan edition. We are going to have our first speaker from Poland who is going to talk about mastering error handling in Canvas apps for a seamless user experiences. So I'm going to share my screen and going to introduce you the necessary video related to this topic. Wish you all the best. See you in next session. I hope there is a technical issue related to voice. Just in next 2 or 3 minutes, this issue will be solved, and you will be able to watch the recorded version of this session. So my apologies for the case.
Hello and welcome everyone to Global Power Platform Bootcamp 2025 edition in Baku. My name is Krzysztof Kania, I'm based in Poland, and today I'm here with you to talk about Canvas apps error handling. But let me start with the presentation, just give me a second and we'll proceed. Okay, everyone, once again, hi, hello, my name is Chris, that is the easiest way to call me, and I'm here with you today to talk about the error handling. So today I want to go on a journey with you of navigating the storm for mastering error handling in Canvas apps for a seamless user experience. Okay, so I'm a Power Apps consultant working with JIT team, and here you're gonna have you have a QR code. Based on that QR code, you can find my social medias, my LinkedIn profile. You can add me. I will be gladly accepting you guys. And if you want to have a conversation, if you want to ask any questions, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn and I will be happy to answer any of your questions, or you can reach out to me via my blog site empower365.cloud. It is recently open. There is not much content over there, but you can see some information about me. You can see where I spoke at the conferences or about the Polish community that I'm a co-organizer of. So to our topic. So we will go through error handling approach today. So we'll start with introduction. From there, we should go to basics. we will talk about how to handle errors, how Canvas apps allows us to do so, what we have to do. Then we'll talk what if we will simply not handle some errors. So let's discuss the unhandled errors, handling unhandled errors approach. And at the end, I'll have for you few useful URLs, so you will be able to scan them and have that content on your phone, on your computer, and read some documentation. So let's begin. I personally have 2 dogs, and I put some effort on training them. I work with them on a weekly basis, so I expect my dogs to behave in some way, right? So whenever I go on the walk, I expect them to walk nearby me. I want them to heel. I want them to come to me whenever I call them. So, but why I am talking about this? Because our applications also are supposed to act in a way, in a certain behavior. So we as citizen developers, as consultants, we are creating the behavior of our application. And here we get the similarity, because we don't want to see a dog barking at other dog. We don't want to see aggressive dog on the street or barking at the humans, right? We want them to act well. We want our applications to act well. If we will have any issues with them, like errors, it might be that other peoples will not like them. And as with the dog, we don't have a problem if someone on the street will not like it, right? But on our applications, if our end users will not have a seamless user experience, they will not be happy. Errors will be flying here and there. They will not like it. They will not be happy to use it. So we, as developers, consultants, citizen developers, we will have the issue. Our company will have the issue. So we want to learn how to work with our application of the scenario of handling those errors to make it so good that the users will love to work with it. So what is the main reason why we should implement error handling? Is it the fear of errors, or is it the fear of our end users? Come on. Our end users, they need to be happy. That might be our colleagues, that might be our friends and peers from our company, right? But it also can be our customer. So we want to be sure that they are happy with the application and we don't have to do too much of support, right? So those red pop-ups that will be flying on the top of the screen, they are not cool. We don't like them. And our users hate them. Whenever those comes up, plenty of issues starts going around. Raising tickets, a lot of unnecessary communication, and someone has to do something. So it's also the support that we have to spend time. So what is the real reason of creating that error handling? Unhappy customers going to seamless user experience. So this user experience is actually a key factor. This user satisfaction is a key factor because the whole journey in our application matters. From opening the application, going through the process, filling up the data, doing whatever that application should do, it should feel for the user flawless, right? So we want to stick with that key principle of user satisfaction. And that satisfaction is related to the seamless user experience. So we know why we should create error handling. So how we should start with it, let's talk about those basics. Where should we start? We should start about thinking where the errors can occur. We want to take control. So we need to know where, right? So we have to identify those errors and code our way to handle them. We cannot always think about every possible aspect, or it's not always worth the time to create error handling everywhere in the application. It can get really, really big. So we also have to think about how we can handle the error when it occurs, but we did not create error handling over there, because this is what we can do in the Canvas apps. And it's called handling unhandled errors. So if we'll go through how to handle errors, how to handle unhandled errors, right? Then we can think how we can learn from our mistakes. So we can think about creating some kind of a repository of errors. So that might be error log list, a table, a single table that will store all the issues, so we can get wiser and wiser whenever issues will occur. So how to start our journey as error handling masters? First of all, let's go to our Canvas apps settings. So here, depending on the Canvas version you have, you will see a formula level error management functionality. And in the older versions, you will have to turn that functionality on to enable some code for error handling. But if you are on the newer version, you will see a disable formula level error management, and we do not want to disable it. If you will turn it off, you will disable error handling functionality, and that's not the case. We want this functionality to be enabled so we can use the code of if error, is error, and errors functions, right? We will go through those in a couple of minutes. So now it's time to identify how we can identify when error can occur. So the errors mostly occurs when we work with our data source. So it can be a network issue, right? It can be a permission issue that we have access somewhere to read the data, but we cannot create new data, and that's one of the things, right? Maybe there is a permission issue, a conflict of edits, so the same record is being edited, multiple people at the same time, right? And we have to check the data values. We want to fill the data that is required. We want to be sure that required data is always available to us. And do not mess types. So we want to check if we are pushing text, let it be text. If we want number, let it be number. Let's check if our values are proper, right? If we want to search for something in our data source, filter our data source with some searching criteria, we don't want that filter to have empty data, empty string to filter. It will throw us an error. So with that start, we can talk about how the code is being executed in Canvas apps, because this is one of the first things we should learn with error handling. It's the Canvas apps architecture. So by default, execution of code is sequential. So it's one after another. So at the current example that you can see, you have dataset 1, dataset 2, variable. So you have to do a first action in the code to proceed to another. Of course, you can say there is a concurrent functionality that allows us to do multiple things at the same time, right? In asynchronized way. Yes, it is possible, but we are talking about out-of-the-box functionalities and mainly error handling. So our error handling will be the easiest to explain on out-of-the-box approach. So we must call for data 1 to be able to proceed with call for number 2. So here you've got the code. You got patch number 1, patch number 2, out of the box, one after another, not asynchronous, but in sequential load. So first, we want to add new item for candidates list and then for job openings list. So what will happen in Canvas apps if the first item will fail? There's an error. The first item goes in. The data is not being created. But unfortunately, the second one can go. So this is crazy, right? Here you get the patch. There is an error. Something went wrong. You cannot find the user in our Office 365 connector. And it's a mess. But the second action works. And our users are like, what? because this is how it works, and we have to learn the way to avoid it. Why this is bad, you might ask. This is the best question you could ask right now. So the data quality, process quality, user experience. So let's go from the last one. User experience. There is an error. They don't know what is happening. They will be clicking again, and it might be that it will not work. We have to figure something out. They don't know what is happening, right? The process quality and the data quality. It is quite related because the data can be a parent and child relationship. So we might not create a parent, but create a child record in our data source. And then we will have a big mess in our data and some kind of a dashboards or internal auditing that we will do. It will show us not good data, and it will be the issue. And the process will not be finished if the user don't know what to do, right? So we need to fix it. What is the best way to start working about the fix? It's to know, to get to know, try, catch, finally error handling approach. Maybe you've heard about it previously. It is well known in programming languages. Try, catch, finally. So this is how it would work in your code if you would look from the perspective of graph. So you go with the first action, first patch. You want to add that new record to candidates, and you check if it worked or not. If it worked, we can go to another action, which would be maybe a success or maybe another patch. But if it will not work, what we want to do, we tried once, we catch the issue, so we want to try again, right? Try, catch, finally, like we have here. So we try, we see, and we do it again. And then we can check again if it failed or not. Of course, we can do this in our code how many times we want. But we have to think actually how critical is it? How many times we actually want to do this? But if that fails 2 times, or with classic programming approach, it would be up to 3, right? Then we can create an error log list. So we can take that error, push it to the data source where we can learn from our mistakes. Okay. So the most important actions that you will find as you are in identify the issue, right? Identify where it can occur is push and get actions. So whenever we want to create new record, update the record, get the data, delete the data. So this is the most obvious place for errors. And I will tell you that based on my experience, most of the time it is when you want to get the data and when you want to push some changes, especially big changes, bulk patch, so more than one record, but plenty of records. But easiest way to start is to work with your input data. That's where I will recommend you to start. Error handling is a complicated approach. It's not only how to solve the issue when it occurs, but how not to allow it to occur. So first of all, if you have any inputs that allows users to search, for example, or the data will look for a manager. For example, you need to provide an email of a user that is providing some kind of a request, and we want to find the manager of that person or a metadata of that person. So based on the email, we will use a connector to look for the data. If you will use a regular input without delay output turned on, it will start asking the connector with each key character you type on your keyboard. If you will provide delay output to true, you can skip that issue. It can never actually occur because delay output will wait after you stop typing on your keyboard, and then we'll take the value and execute a query on our connector. So this is why I recommend to use delayed output. To miss a situation when you will look for a user with one character, for example, provided, and then two, or it can get messy. So it's better not to do it and be safe. Use the delayed output to pass that data from inputs control to something that will use that data in the next steps, like Office 365 users connector. Okay, next step. The next step is notifications. I'll highly recommend to learn how to communicate with your end users based on those little pop-ups. Because if the error will occur, your users will see the red notification on the top, even if you will not do anything. It will just say something, technical stuff. They will not have a clue. But if we will provide error handling, we can use notification to say to our user, oops, something happened, or we are looking for checking the permissions, we're doing something. So the user actually knows that something is happening. So on notify, you can also set a color of your notification. So it can be green, it would be a success. It can be gray, so it will be information pop-up. It can be red as error occurred. And you can also set a time. It's set in milliseconds. So for example, 3000 milliseconds will be 3 seconds. So your notification can have 3 different colors and be visible via time that you established. Out of the box, if you will not provide anything like the code you see here on the screen, it will be gray for approximately 3 seconds visible on the screen. But you have to know how to use notifications and think the way you want to communicate with your user. Do you want to write there like error handled? What's next, boss? What is the next step? We know what should be the next step. If we handled an error and everything worked fine, maybe we don't need to communicate that it was happening, right? So you have to think about it. So we went through providing the input data and information about notifications. Now let's go to the code that will allow us to handle those errors. So if you will enable error handling functionality, error level management formula, or do not disable it, you will have access to functionalities like is blank or error, is error, if error, errors, coalesce, the on error property on application level, right? So those are available to you for the error handling. Now we will go one by one and do some comparison how you can do actually error handling in Power Apps Canvas apps. So is error and is blank is our error actually checks if error occurred before our users will notify us that it occurred, right? So I like to put this Eminem part here. Something's wrong, I can feel it. So we need to be aware that something is coming and do the error handling before our Met users will come to us and start sending a lot of emails that they want this to be fixed now. So what is error here? What is it doing? It actually tells us if the error occurred. Is there an error or not? So there is a simple value it provides. It's true or false output. So you put your patch or get data functionality, for example, clear collect, inside is error, and then you will get true or false. Did it work properly or failed somewhere on the way? So this is how it would look like. It checks only if error occurs. It does not anything else. So we have to add if statement or switch statement to actually do something more. So as you can see, the example that we had previously with patch, creation of new record in our candidate's data source. So we put is error around the patch, then we added if at the beginning, right? After is error, we got comma, and we got on failure notification and then on success notification. So on failure, we can add again our code. And on success, we can proceed with the next steps, as you remember from the graph that I've presented. And the cool thing is that it can be turned around. So you can add this negation point, not at the beginning of is error, and then the logic of if will switch around. So I mostly use with negation. Here you got the comparison. You can decide what approach you want to use because you are the master of your approach. So you can use the regular one, or you can use with negation, and then decide, do you want to do the error handling at the beginning, so handle your error, or maybe you want to continue with success. I always continue with success. For me, it's easier because you can see your code from the top to the bottom in the way that you want it to be executed. And then if something happens, you go around it, right? So you can decide however you want to work, but please remember one thing. You might not be working alone. You might be a part of a bigger team. You might have a team guidelines. You might have a company guidelines. Hey, everyone is working in this order. Please work this way. Please make sure, ask your friends, ask your colleagues, team members, project manager, or your manager, are they aware about it? Is there anything in our company related to guidelines, good practices, templates, and use it the same way? Because it will be easier for everyone to use the same approach. Is it for error handling or for different items in Power Platform? But please make that question and check, right? Okay, another one is blank or error. What does it do? It is a combination of two functions. A function of is error. So if the error occurred that we were talking previously, and is blank. So if there is a value provided of inside the label, for example, right? So you can see that this comparison of or and two functions inside one. So this is great. I love it. I use it a lot. But it is obvious that as an input, we provide some kind of a data. So as the output, what we will get? We get, as before, a true-false value. So the true-false value will tell us, was there an error or was there a blank value? We don't know. We know that it might be blank or it might be an error, but we should not use that label, for example, that data, that string, because it does not exist. There's an issue with it or whatever. So we can use it, but we still have to put that if somewhere. So if you are just starting your journey with error handling and you were utilizing is blank previously, I highly recommend to change your is blank to is blank or error, because you are also adding error handling into it, and it's not that power consuming functionality that you might think it's not worth to add it. But if we are here, right, and I'm recommending to change it to stay safe, you need to know how the code looks like, right? So you are checking the value of the priority and you're saying, oh, it might be blank, it might be error, but something did not work. We can say, oh, most likely our user did not provide the input for something, right? And please provide that input. So then if that input will be provided, we can say, okay, the input is here, we'll create a new record with the new data, and that will be perfect. You can also switch it around. You are the master of your approach. Use whatever one you like. You can use regular one. You can use the negation, right? And you can see the difference on the code as a comparison. It is, what do you like? Or how do you work on a bigger team? But if we are talking about quitting is blank and doing is blank or error instead, maybe there is something similar that will ease our work. Of course there is. That function is called coalesce. I think I pronounced it properly. So you utilize coalesce value functionality and you provide two values. So what it checks and what it does, it say, hey, I have the first value, value 1 is not blank, use value 1. But use value 2 whenever value 1 is blank, right? So this is quite easy, but this function is a little bit more complicated. It can be used in plenty of great scenarios. So you can check if a record exists on our table. If not, please create a new one. It's really, really powerful, right? But I recommend it to you to have fun with it. Check how it works, because it's not that intuitive as it is with is blank or error. Okay, so learn how to use coalesce instead of if is blank or error when applicable, when you feel like it, whenever you will get into it, right? But if you don't feel comfortable, and don't blame yourself, coalesce, it's not the easiest one, and also from the logic perspective it can get tricky. Just use if is blank or error. It's much better than just be stuck with is blank. So still, I highly recommend to update your code, but to which one you can decide by your own. Okay, another one, if error. So this is actually a smart guy, because this guy is saying, okay, so what would happen if we will take is error, which is returning true or false, and actually add if statement to it straight away? So this is what this guy does. This guy is combining if and is error functionality at the same time. You might like it because it's quicker, it's easier. You're using one function less, right? Here you get comparison on the left, how if error looks and how if is error looks. They are really, really similar. I use mostly if negation is error, not if error, but this is personal. I just started this way. I just like it this way. I feel it more comfortable to go this way, but you can use your own approach, whatever you like, and go with if error. This guy is just handling the if statement, switch statement on top of is error from the output true false. So you can decide. Now we know how to check if the errors occurred. So how do we check what error occurred? We know true false. Was there an error or was not? Okay, function errors. That's a function that returns a table of content of our error details. So you've got a record, a column, a message, an error. So those are technical stuff. How do we get the data? We actually check if the connection, right, on our data source connection, was there an error? So this is a table. So we check if there was an issue, and if something happened, we check if the table contains data. So for that, we need to utilize a function called isEmpty, which checks tables if it contains any data or not. It's not isBlank anymore. isBlank is to a value, a record, not to multiple records inside a table. So But it can be filtered with isBlank also, but it's a different story. But the whole table approach, you check it with isBlank. So you don't have to put is error, if error around our patch. You can just do patch, and later you can say, hey, on that connection for our SharePoint list to our database table, was there any issue? So we're saying, hey, is table of errors that occurred on this particular connection, does it contain data? Yes, no. And then we can say there was an error or there wasn't an error. So if there was an error, right? We can utilize those errors of table name, list name, right? Value with information of column of message. We can put that into a notification, which will be completely useless for our end users. It will be great for us, developers. But for our end users, they don't want to know what column data the message was. This is mostly technical stuff. Sometimes the message is useful, but you can create your own perfectly fitted for end users for the seamless user experience notification. Okay? But you can create what data are there, or you can use a concat function to put them inside a notification. You can put those in our error log list, which we are talking about. Plenty of possibilities, because over there, a lot, and also a lot of data is here at the first error function. So it allows us to read errors. So we can say, oh, what was the source? What was the response of HTTP details, right? Code status, 404. Everyone knows that, right? What was the kind? You can use a lot of them. Here, there is an example for you how I've interpolated into a string information what is happening with the error. But again, this is not something that we want to show to our users. This is great for our error log list. Not for our users, it's for us. Citizen developers, consultants, right? Developers. We can use it, we can think about it. But 99% of time, it's useless for a business user for whom we are creating an application. So there's so many stuff that if we will go to kind, first error.kind, you can see that over there you have plenty of different kinds. There is a perfect one. I love it so much. I will tell you a lot about it. Look here, error kind dot none. There is no error. That's the perfect one. I would love to have those all the time, right? We have error kind unknown. There was an error, but we don't know what kind of an error. So just something just happened. Okay, but we can take the data to analyze even further what was going on, like create permissions. Attempt was made to create a record. The current user doesn't have permissions to create records. So we're gonna have that data straight away. We just have to think how we want to take it, work inside our application, save it into external data source for error logs. So we know how to store, maybe not store, we haven't talked about storing yet, but we know how to code our way about errors. So this is called error handling errors. So we know where the issue can occur, we identify it, we put code here, we put code there, we said this will be the first action, this will be the second, I want to retry, I want to notify, so congratulations. Successfully, we went together through error handling coding approach. Now, the next step is to handle unhandled errors. So this is great, because let's clarify what is unhandled error so we are on the same page. Previously, we handled identified errors. We knew when it could occur. So we put code around it. So when error occurred in a place where we didn't put that code around, this error handling around, errors around, right? We unhandled the error and we want to still handle it. So we can handle unhandled error. This is complicated. So let's just go where and how we can start. So you will provide a code in one place. This place is application metadata. So on your Canvas apps, it will be on the top. But once again, we want to handle. So we want to code and logic that will be used in all application in the places where errors occurred when error handling was not utilized in it, right? That's I think a little bit more easier to understand. So you have to look from the whole application perspective. If you already created error handling approach, this will not be included in the unhandled errors in whole application approach. So where to start? On application metadata, Canvas apps metadata, you select your app. Then on the top bar, you will see a drop-down, which you will click and navigate to on error. Then on the FX side, PowerFX, you will be able to write a code that will be executed every time something will fail or will occur in a place that was not handled with previously described approach, right? That easy. So we can utilize that notification, for example. Everywhere you will look online, even Microsoft documentation used to go with divided by 0. You cannot divide by 0. So you can do error handling of if is error, divide by 0, or you can leave dividing by 0 without error handling and put that error handling here on add-on error property. And this is a good place to create error list. So every time unhandled error will be created, it will raise, leave, we will bury it with our data source log information, what happens over there, right? And pros and cons of this approach. The pros are you will get that information. You will save it, but it will be only for those unhandled errors. And you want to save those errors. All of them. So this is something that you can think yourself. How would you approach it? How would you create an error list of handled errors? Because if you would like to use regular coding approach, then unfortunately you have to put that create new record on each coding error handling that you've did. And it will take a lot of time, a lot of space. So maybe you can create a reusable approach. This is something for you to think about based on your experience, based on your approach. And it seems that you know a lot about errors right now and how to handle those errors in Canvas apps, that the only thing that I can give you right now are the useful links, the QR codes that will help you to go through documentation, to see once again what is happening over there and read other people's thoughts about error handling. If you will have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me on LinkedIn, on the blog site, right here. Once again, you've got a QR code. You can add me. I will be happy to answer all of your questions, right? So I would like to thank you very much for the time you spent with me today. I want to thank organizers of Global Power Platform Bootcamp 2025 edition in Baku for having me with you, for choosing me among plenty of great speakers and plenty of great sessions. I'm really honored to be here with you. My name is Chris, and I'm a power-ups consultant at JIT, and I wish you a great day and see you soon at some event. Bye.